All right, this is how we're building plumbing systems or working on plumbing systems, but how are we running plumbing systems? Generally speaking, we're drilling holes with a selection of hole saws. You can use, this is, I found some electrical wiring with this, and I've yet to rip it off of there. It's actually on there pretty good. You can use a Forstner or any of these speed bore type of bits, but you notice they're going to turn the material from the center to the outside. See these three blades here? They're cutting all the way. So the entire volume of the hole is being turned into sawdust. That takes a lot of power. And these are not going to have a good time if they find a nail or a screw, because there's just so much surface area and these aren't hard enough. It's going to bottom out and never go through a nail or a screw. And they're fucking expensive. This thing is like probably 25 or at least 25, if not 30 or 35 bucks for this. So we use hole saws because the meat and potatoes of the hole saw arbor can be used forever. You can replace the pilot drill, as much as necessary if you break it. And each of the hole saw sizes, you run them until they're dull, or you hit something that it couldn't cut through, and you get a new one. There's a lot more versatility in that. And you're only asking it to turn the volume of the thickness of this to sawdust. The inside stays intact, the outside stays intact, obviously, but you are confined to making passes that are as deep and no deeper than the saw itself, because once you bottom out that intact wood on the inside, it won't go in anymore, it won't cut any farther. So these are normally 1.5 inches because that's normally what you're cutting through, 1.5 inch lumber, dimensional framing lumber. And so this will get you a hole through, they're a little more than 1.5 inches. It'll get you a hole through all framing lumber in that way. These days you can get longer ones that'll go through a true 2 inches or more, different connection types, it'll pop off. I have a whole rant video on this. Don't get sucked into any of that mumbo jumbo. None of these little things address the real problems with hole saw arbors. Motherfucker, there you go. So don't get swept away with that. And drill bit extensions. Again, in my video, driver extensions, excuse me. This is a drive shaft extension that's modular. It'll clip together like that, clip together like that. Then you can clip your hole saw arbor into the end of it. It's all just a quick connect, but this will let you go and go and go along in the wall, adding these because a lot of times you can't get a drill in where you need to go. So these all just pop apart with the pull of a shaft or the pull of a little steel foreskin. And big auger bits for going long distances of a certain size. You wouldn't necessarily use a hole saw that diameter if you're going a real long way. Well, there's no sweat when you get down to a small enough diameter. You just use a nice big auger bit. This is often what you drill into the house from the outside with, or out from inside to put in like a silcock or a connection for a garden hose. Another thing I'll mention is I like a lot of different diameter extra long drill bits, but the 1/4 inch one I almost always use, because if I'm going through something thick, like for whatever reason, just representationally, this big thick wall here, and I want to put a big opening through it, or I did this recently for a dryer vent, I need to use a 4-inch hole, and I need to drill through, or whatever size I want to do here. I want to make a nice big hole in this wall all the way through that size. Or you would think that you could just drill through and then remove it and take the crap out of it and just keep drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling. You're going to get lost trying to do that, and you're going to get to a point where you can't reach in there far enough from one side, and you got to come around to the other side and meet up, and you're going to be screwed because you're never going to know where to start here. Enter the extra long drill bit. I'll take something like this, and this is probably the biggest application without going to the next length, but you drill all the way through one side and out the other with the little 1/4 inch bit, and then you use that on the pilot bit for the hole saw on the one side. You go as deep as you could possibly go, and if you need to meet up with it on the other side, you start in the same hole and you go back in the other direction, and it'll keep you concentric, and it'll keep you, it'll make it so those holes work out almost perfectly. And I did that when I plumbed through the little cabinet that I turned into a sink base for the bathroom next door. I do it all the time. So along with hole saws go extensions for the pilot drill size, so that you can use them to their full advantage from both sides. And the last piece of that puzzle is a drill with some serious balls. This is what we all know as a nice big drill gun. this will almost always do the trick for you. But when you get into electrical and plumbing sort of more seriously, you want to get into like a whole hog or a 90-degree drill. This has got more motor, it's got more beef to the drivetrain, and it's got an extremely short body of it. Notice it's almost half as long as that drill there, and you can pop this handle right off of there. So when you're talking about overall length here, look at how much, I hate this exposure, so yeah, it's less than half the length, and it's got way more power. So you start needing yourself, you know, something like that to run all those drill bits. And you got your classics, you know, you got your spade bits too. These will do you often. Again, not fine woodworking tools, just making holes in rough lumber, just getting a hole of a certain size in there. You can do a nice clean job with it, but it's certainly not a fine woodworking tool. So I have a variety of different spade bit sizes, a variety of different little hole saws, and then, you know, you don't go very much larger than an inch, inch and a half with this style of drill, and then it's really asking a lot. It has a lot of, you know, you need a lot of torque to be cutting holes open with that, so then you go into something more like a Forstner or a hole saw. So, and the other part of the other piece of the systems puzzle is electricity, and running wire is normally the other thing you want to do before you do any demo even is test. So I have a variety of different testers that'll go off if you get near electrical current, electromagnetic. There. This one is calibrated. This will do 50 to 1,000 volts or 10. The different color lights. You get a yellow, real low voltage. This I can troubleshoot on a 12-volt system like on my car or a lawnmower. At low voltage, it'll tell me if there's low voltage with a yellow signal, and line voltage are like you know, 110 volts all the way up to 1,000 volts. In your typical residential, it'll go off with red, which is a nice little feature. This one didn't do that, but it's still really nice to have. The other nice thing about this is the end of it will plug into the socket and stay there. So you can leave it plugged in, blowing up, and you can go to the electrical panel and just listen through a quiet house and flip breakers until you hear the thing stop squawking. And that way you don't need a second person as much to make sure that you're operating without roasting yourself, or that you've got things turned off so you won't be electrocuting yourself when you're working on them. Pretty standard, although these are only 30 or 40 bucks. Klein Tools, they have a variety of electrical crimpers in the back of the handle here, a little clipper there, and some wire strippers there. And these here, linesman pliers. This is what you want. It's a nice square flat jaw that touches together just enough, but not too much. So you want, that's a linesman plier, and it has a little clipper at the back, and it has some common wire size strippers in here. This will almost do everything you need to do when you're wiring outlets. This here has different smaller sizes for lower voltage. So I normally just have this on me when I'm wiring outlets, but it'll cut wire to length, it'll strip the ends of it off, and when you get the ends of them together, you grab them all together with the end, those nice flat jaws, and you twist them all up, and then they create like a beautiful little twist. Sometimes you can clip the end of that twist off if it got a little out of control, and then you can screw a little wire nut on there. So this will do almost everything you need. Although, sometimes I get frustrated stripping wires that way, and this is a one-shot. It just bites down, see that? And it grabs, and the wire lays in here laterally across the face of it like this. And it just rips the end of it off. It's like that. Just pow, pow, pow. So sometimes I'll just grab those, go around to all the wires I've got hanging out of all my outlets, and just pow, 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 pow. Clean the, you know, get them all stripped off. It's far quicker than closing this around the right size, twisting it back and forth a little bit, and pulling. It's just, that type of thing seems easy enough, but when you compound it, it really starts to create problems. So I'll use these in that case. And a fish. This is a strip of spring steel that comes out of this roll, but it can be forced through and snaked around. It's almost like a drain snake, but it's flat, and you get it to where you want your wire to come from. You connect your wire to it, and then you pull it back through, and you drag the wire with it. So this is important kind of for that reason as well. Allen keys in case some of your tools need repairs, or you have hardware and stuff like that that needs to be taken apart or put back together again in that way. Ordinary pliers, front cutting diagonal pliers, a lot of times to pull nails. You can also pull nails with side cutting diagonal pliers. or clip things off, clip staples off, stuff like that. Those are always on my tool rig. Actually, these are my B squad. The A squad's on the tool rig. And then this thing, this is like more of a mechanics tool, but when you push this little hypodermic needle kind of an arrangement, these little grabber things come out the end of it, and you can actually get a hold of something pretty substantial with it. I don't know if I can get this quite. You can grab it like there, and you could pick it up and take it somewhere, or get it dug back out of wherever you dropped it into. And if you get a good one, which this one is a cheap piece of crap, it should have a little LED light on the end of it that comes on when it opens. So down in that dark hole there, you can't see what you're doing. There's a little light right on the end too. Find yourself a better brand than this one, but that is something I can't live without when you get into a situation and that's what you need. Well, that's what you need. Screwdrivers, electrical screwdrivers. These are shielded, so I'm not going to be bumping into anything. If I'm working through in a panel, I won't be shorting them out, bumping into anything, because they're shielded all the way up to the tip. And they've got extremely nice geometry. Some of the nicest, if you get expensive screwdrivers, you get really nice hardened geometry at the ends, which just makes them much nicer to use. Although I have a variety here. Knives, I like an Olfa breakaway razor knife. You just keep breaking those off as you need a newer or sharper knife, and anywhere you dial it in or pull it to here, you can just dial it in to keep it trapped at that level or spin it down. I like a big fat one, all fresh, run all the way out, cuts insulation really nicely. I have a few others here. I've got a silicone spreader for different sticky materials that I want to, like glues and stuff like that, that I don't want to get all over something else and have it pull off. A paint marker, chalk for different surfaces that you want to mark that won't take a pencil or they can't see pencil on. Gorilla tape, blue tape, tinfoil tape, electrical tape, ordinary drill bits. And then we're trying to cover up the wall, right? We're going to get into a situation where we're ready to go, so let's come back and talk about that.